The top 15 selling consoles of all time. This is Video Game Hall of Fame. Welcome to Video Game Hall of Fame. This is the top 15 selling consoles up to the 7th generation. Let's jump into it. Number 15. The Xbox gets its name from DirectX, as in DirectX machine, as in Xbox. They introduced concepts such as Xbox Live, which has become pretty much a standard for all video game consoles. They introduced the Halo series. It's Microsoft's first entry into the console market. Number 14.
Let's see what we can come up with next.
We're Atari. We have the vision, and we invented the technology to bring it home to you.
The Atari 2600 is the father of the console. I mean, without this thing, we wouldn't have consoles today. I mean, we talk about console wars. This thing sold 30 million units. Its closest competitor sold 2. I mean, it wasn't a console war back then. It was one really big juggernaut Atari console instilling democracy and freedom on a whole bunch of other smaller consoles. Number 13. Now, if there's any console on this list that can be considered a failure, it's the Nintendo 64. They had the lion's share of the market, and to fuck it up, to just go in there and to be shit about it, no. But seriously, I mean, the Nintendo 64 introduced a lot of very important things. The analog stick became standard after this console because 3D gaming just needed it. It also introduced the rumble feature, which is a staple of every console to this day. Number 12. Sega! The Sega Genesis, or the Sega Mega Drive as it's known in other parts of the world. This is Sega's only entry into the top 15. It was a great console. It had blast processing, and I really don't know what that is, but it had blast processing! The Sega Genesis also introduced this guy, who has become one of the biggest icons in the video game industry. Number 11.
Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Now this console pretty much just cashed in on the NES. Don't get me wrong, I love this console. This was the first console I ever owned. It introduced the little shoulder buttons that everybody uses now. But you know, aside from Mode 7, it didn't really do much. Number 10.
On the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now you're playing with power.
This console is one of the most important consoles in video game history, purely and simply because it came out in 1983. And that was the same year as the video game crash of 1983. Now you wouldn't know it because this thing took the world by storm. The Nintendo Entertainment System, very important system in video game history. Number 9. The Xbox 360 was Microsoft's second console. It expanded on Xbox Live, which meant you could do more things with it, download stuff, download games, download music, download movies, all that sort of cool stuff. It also introduced the Kinect, which is now an integral part of the Xbox One. It's essentially a camera that can add the depth. You know what the 360 thing does. You can like do the 3D thing. The 3D thing. Number 8. The PlayStation Portable, also known as the PCP. PlayStation kind of looked at the Game Boy and went, you know what? That looks nice. The PlayStation Portable introduced analog controls to portable gaming, which had never been done before, and because of the technology being brought into the portable gaming market, was really necessary for 3D games and all. Number 7. PlayStation 3 was essentially the PlayStation 2, but with like a lot better hardware. And that's pretty much it. It introduced Blu-ray, and it also doubled as a Blu-ray player, making it a home entertainment system. They also got their act together with the PlayStation Network, meaning that online stuff was way better. Yeah, it was good. It was good. Not as good as the Xbox, but it was good. Number 6. the Game Boy Advance. This thing was essentially a Super Nintendo, but miniaturized. And that's it. Like, it had Mario Kart and all of those sorts of games on it. And, you know, it was pretty cool, but like, really? It's number 6? Number 5. The Wii. And that's about it. No, seriously. The Wii introduced motion control stuff to video gaming. I mean, without that, you wouldn't be doing this. It also expanded the market for video games because a lot of people who'd never played video games before decided, hey, this is for me. You know, because everybody wants to do this all the time. After Nintendo did this, every single console introduced some form of motion control into their controllers. It was very revolutionary for the time, and we're still kind of living with it today. Number 4. Back in the days of the SNES, Nintendo were enlisting the help of Sony to help develop a CD-based system for the Super Nintendo. But Nintendo being Nintendo, they were kind of greedy and power-hungry and controlling, and essentially Sony went off and said, we'll make our own video game console with blackjack and hookers, and they did, and third-party developers flocked to them. They introduced CD into the console market, and this just seemed like a good idea to everybody. The PlayStation essentially was an outlet for all the third-party developers who had been, you know, by Nintendo, and Sony still remains a dominant player in the video game industry to this day. Number 3. In the late 80s, the idea of a portable console was starting to catch on, and while others were looking to get like a color screen and make the thing really cool, Nintendo went, colored screens are expensive, let's just make it black and white. And gamers just kind of went, that console's cheaper, and it's got a Nintendo logo on it. And that's the story of why the Game Boy is number 3 on this list. But seriously, there were some cool games and stuff, like look at these things. And the original Pokemon Red and Blue was on this thing, and it came out towards the end of its life cycle, and that has become one of the biggest franchises in the video game industry. Number 2. Nintendo DS had a touchscreen, which was revolutionary at the time, but now is becoming fairly commonplace with all the popular IPs that Nintendo has, from Mario to Mario Kart to Mario 64 to Mario stuff. And you know, Pokemon and a few other things. This portable console is second on the all-time best-selling list. Number 1. The PlayStation 2 introduced DVDs into the console market. DVDs hold more data. It made the games bigger, longer, more expansive. It also allowed the PlayStation 2 to be a DVD player. It was a home entertainment unit. For the first time, you could buy a console and it wouldn't just be there to play video games. And a lot of people bought this thing. Over 150 million people own one of these. The PlayStation 2 had over 3,500 games released for it, and they sold about 1.5 billion copies. By far, this is the biggest selling console of all time, and probably will remain that way. And there you have it, the top 15 selling consoles of all time. If you have a game you want to see in the Video Game Hall of Fame, please leave it in the comments below. Remember, caring is sharing, so like, comment and subscribe. And until next time, may the game never be over.